What do you do when an employee's performance starts to slip? This is exactly what happened with an individual on my team, and I'm going to walk you through what we did in order to get them back on track. Here's the situation. I have an employee who was working in office, and then he switched to a hybrid role, and then he went remote. And once he went remote, after about 2 weeks, I noticed that productivity went way down. Now, the problem was that I was juggling so many things that I didn't accurately have data to say exactly, hey, you're not quite hitting things, because he was doing some of the stuff he needed to do, but I was noticing projects that used to take 2 hours were taking 3 days. I'd hear about it in a daily connect for 3 days in a row that he's working on a landing page when it should be done in 2 hours. And the same thing with getting new ads live, we talked about, and with changing our targeting or some messaging, where things were just taking so long. And you know that sense you get as a manager when you can tell that somebody is kind of slipping, not as focused or a bit distracted, but we're human, right? That happens. Something happens in our personal life that takes us out, or we're off for a day or two. That's normal. But this was consistent for a few weeks where he was just disengaged. He was missed a few meetings, and I had to address it. So this is exactly what I did to help him get his performance back on track, so that we didn't have to have further hard conversations, and he was able to start performing well again. So, I do weekly one on ones with every member of my team. It's 30 minutes slated where I go through a couple of questions and also get their feedback on how I'm doing, how the team is doing, just general stuff. And during this time, it's a key opportunity to address any of these productivity or performance dips where we can talk about, hey, this project is slated to take a week and it's been, dragged out for 2.5. And what, let me help you. And that is a tough conversation because if it goes wrong, somebody can feel like you don't support them or you're a bad manager or that you don't care about them as an individual. And this simple framework is exactly what I go through to make sure that they know that one, I care about them, and two, I give them all the tools necessary to get back on track, and I don't blame them. I take the responsibility as the manager for failing. So the very first thing that I do when I sit down with them is I explain how ultimately the buck has to stop with somebody. And in marketing's case, it's me. If we fail in marketing, it's not anybody's fault but mine because I either didn't set clear enough expectations or goals, or I was unrealistic in what I said we could achieve when we didn't have the resources to do it. So it's first off that I'm grateful for, let's look at these things that you've done that are great because I want them to know that I appreciate what they did. So for this individual, it's, hey, I saw that you had done this ad set where we talked about this particular pain point and it's been doing really well and gotten, a whole bunch of leads and it's been doing really well. And that was to start a basis of you've done good things, I support you, and I want to keep giving you the tools you need to succeed because you've done it before, you only have more skills now, and I want you to be able to do it again. And then it was addressing, hey, I've noticed, I kind of get the sense that productivity from 3 months ago, where you were getting done in a week, is now taking a bit longer. Is everything all right? Because I want them to know that I care about them, that I do notice, hey, if productivity is dipping, and you haven't shown up for the daily 15-minute connect, the last one of the days these week. Is it all right? Did you have an emergency? Like I want to make sure that I know what's happening, and that's to make sure that they know I care about them and I'm aware of what they're doing and that it's good. I want them on the team, and then I like to get into specifics. And for this individual's roles, it was building these landing pages and doing these ad creatives. I was expecting this to, be done a little sooner. And have you run into blockers? Has anything come into your way that would stop this? And most importantly, did you know I wanted you to do this? Because sometimes I say something once or twice, and if it's not clearly written out, like very defined, and I want you to do exactly this by this date, and this is how I want you to do it, sometimes people just don't know, so they just don't act because they're not sure. And maybe they're afraid, well, I had a previous boss, and if I did it wrong, I was punished. So I don't want to do it wrong and get in trouble. I'd rather not do it because that's safer. Maybe that's their experience, or maybe they just don't know how, or that you wanted them to do it. So I asked him, hey, did you know that I wanted you to get these new ads? And that I wanted you to finish this landing page. And he was like, yeah, I did. But it was kind of soft. And so I realized I needed to be better on accountability. I needed to make sure that it was updated in Notion, so he knew exactly what exactly needed to happen. I say Notion because that's how we project manage. It could be Asana, it could be Monday, it could be anything, whatever you use. Then, because he knew that I wanted him to do it, I said, okay, go great. Did you know how to do what you wanted me to do? What I wanted you to do, updating the landing pages and the creative. And we went through on, yeah, these are some of the ideas we had spoken about. I think I knew what we wanted on the landing page, and I did run into kind of a blocker with this pixel thing, but yeah, I probably could have solved it. And we recognized, okay, well, he knew I wanted him to do it, but I can do better. And he knew how to do it, but I could have been more proactive in making sure he knew that I wanted him to do it, and that was made it really clear for him to spend more time on it to solve these things. And then the third thing that we talked about is, did you know a deadline? Because in my head, we had talked about the end of November, which recording this is 12 days ago. We were going to have these ads live on LinkedIn, and it still hasn't happened. And so, what else have you been doing? Because usually, a lot of times, it's not that employees are not doing anything, but it's they're doing other things. Maybe it's an easier task or a task they prefer. But the truth is, as a manager, you know that there's going to be 20% of their stuff they do is going to get 80% of the results. Pareto's principle. And if he's working 80% of the time on this small stuff, then that means the big needle of getting a really high quality ad and landing page and a new campaign with new messaging out on platforms and getting money behind it, that's going to be the big driver that's going to get us more leads, which is ultimately what we want for me being the VP of marketing. That's what we want. And he was working on some stuff with SMS and fine tuning like calendar scheduling and working on some other projects that were they just didn't make a difference to the same level that this would. And that made it clear I needed to prioritize better. So I needed to remember, one, it was, I want you to do this. Two, here's how to do it. And if you don't know how, talk to me right away. And I say that in our project management, and I tell my team member, him individually, but everyone on the team, if you don't know how to do it, raise your hand and I will help you. And it's not your fault. It's my fault for expecting something of you you didn't know. That's my bad as the manager. Three, I want it done by this time. And let me get into four. The most important is let's go through all of your priorities and make sure that you're able to do this thing. Because what happened was this thing became up, and this one, and this one, and this one. But all that I wanted, if nothing else, was to get this ad live and done with a new landing page and a new campaign. And it would have taken 5-6 hours of focused time, and we're 2 weeks in, and these other small projects have gotten done. But they're not getting us the results that this would. Which means I need to help you prioritize. And that's not a bad thing. That's my fault as the manager for not making it clear that this is the most important thing that's going to give you the most. This is what I want you to do. And I do not want you to spend time on anything else until this is done. So you can sit down with them and say, let's look, write down these 10 things. And what I like to do is a very simple framework where they write down their 10 things and then they write them and rank them in order of impact and in order of enjoyment. Because sometimes people do things that don't have an impact, but they enjoy them, and they avoid the things that will make a really big impact, but they don't enjoy it. So they just put it off and off and off. So I went through this hard conversation with them, and then afterward, it ended up very positively where they were aligned, and they knew what I wanted them to do, and the deadline to do it. They knew how to do it, and they prioritized their time, so they were able to accomplish those things. That is how an employee went from underperforming and me being on the block of, well, if things don't change, I might have to look elsewhere because this is becoming a real problem, to just resetting the expectations with them and reprioritizing and making sure they have the tools to succeed. And all of a sudden, they were performing at a great level again, and we were able to keep chugging along and getting leads. Hopefully this helps one person who has an employee who is doing well and started to slip, and they need to help them get back on the train.